What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here, and today we're going to be talking about the five biggest movers this offseason. We're going to be basing it off of their impact onto the team as well as individual statistics. This is going to be a great video, so stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And why don't we just jump right into it with, of course, the most obvious position that moves every year, but this one's going to be quite different as Derek Carr is going to the New Orleans Saints. Now, this one is massive, and if you didn't watch our podcast that we dropped last week, you should definitely check it out because we talk in detail about Derek Carr, but he did just sign a 4-year deal worth $150 million. Second in Raiders history in wins during his time there, which is crazy because the Raiders were never really a true contender. Derek Carr did have that one playoff year, but he did get injured as well. He was also an MVP candidate that year. The craziest thing for Carr, and the reason why I think he's such a big mover this year, is he's going to be going from playing against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert to Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield, Desmond Ridder, and Bryce Young, who is a rookie. I mean, he should just dominate every single one of these QB duels. The biggest factor for Carr and for the Saints is that Carr has never played with a defense ranked better than 20th in points per game. Now, the Saints last year, despite having a horrible offense, were actually fourth defense in points per game last year. So that's just going to be amazing. That defense combined with Carr's efficiency is going to be great. And you would have to say, right, that he's now a top 5 quarterback. He wasn't ever the best quarterback in his division, let alone in his conference. Now, other than really Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, who were really the only two that I could confirm to put over Carr, you could say Stafford, Cousins, or Daniel Jones, but I would have Carr over them. He ends up being a top 5 quarterback in this conference, so he should just dominate. Now, the head coach who drafted Carr is also the Saints' new coach, Dennis Allen. So that's going to help Carr as well. And just looking at the weapons, combining one of the best deep ball throwers in the league with a dynamic weapon like Chris Olave, a healthy Michael Thomas, a fast sophomore in Shaheed, and the perimeter threat that they just acquired in the draft, A.T. Perry. And that's without even factoring in Alvin Kamara's pass-catching ability. I think that the Saints are primed for a great year, and I actually have them winning their division and being the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, big QB upgrade, terrible division. They have a chance to make some real noise in the NFC this year. And that brings us into the second guy that we want to talk about today, the big boy up front, Javon Hargrave, former Eagle, my favorite team. Sad to see him go. Great player. He signed a 3-year, $39 million deal. Got paid. I'm happy for him. And this is a big deal. First, I want to talk about the players. Past 2 seasons, most sacks both years. The most sacks he's ever had last year, 11, and the year before that, second most ever, 7.5. And when he's not going after the quarterback and getting a sack, he's consistent pressure. He had 57 total pressures last year. That's more than double any other interior defensive lineman on the 49ers. Also, solid run defender, but really gets in there on the pass defense. And this is really important because the NFL is realizing how important it is to have that interior pressure. Donald on the Rams, they won a Super Bowl. Jones on the Chiefs, the offense is great, but Jones is the best player on that defense the entire Mahomes era. Last year with the Eagles, you saw how good our entire D-line was, but the interior defensive line. Going to a team that has such great edge rush presence, you have Nick Bosa, a top 5 edge rusher in the entire league, reigning defensive player of the year. Eric Armstead and Drake Jackson, they have a good rotation. Now that you have a man eating up on the middle, giving consistent pressure, it's going to be really hard to focus on 2 things at once.
Yeah, I agree that Javon Hargrave is going to be an absolute monster. They always somehow have the best D-line in football. From one side of the line to the other, this time we're going to the tackle Orlando Brown, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs, now on the Cincinnati Bengals. Not too bad teams to be on in your career. Brown only allowed 4 sacks last year, and now the tackle that he's replacing, Jonah Williams, allowed 12 for Joe Burrow last season. Protecting Joe Burrow is the biggest need for the Bengals as he is their most valuable player. Burrow actually has a 96 passing grade from clean pockets, which is the best since he entered the league. However, he has rarely been in that situation because he has had pressure on a third of his drops and has taken 153 sacks since entering the league, which is the most since his draft year. Now, Brown comes from a refined Chiefs organization and can not only bring his talent, but his maturity that is always developing Bengals locker room. Now, I believe that Brown's signing is also a major factor in the Bengals keeping Joe Mixon because his run blocking and bulldozing is a major strength, and he should be a great schematic fit.
Yeah, guy's a bully, and like you said, I mean, Joe Burrow, he's phenomenal with all that pressure. Hopefully, Orlando Brown can hold up for him, and if he gets these clean pockets, he'll be even better, which is kind of hard to believe. So the next guy we wanted to talk about today is DJ Moore going to the Bears. One of my favorite players in the entire league. I have an obsession with DJ Moore. I think he's phenomenal, extremely underrated. He was a part of that huge package that the Panthers sent over for the first overall pick. First thing I want to get into, again, is the player himself. Guy's a stud. He's had 1,000-yard receiving every year except for last year and his rookie year. He's had 1,000 scrimmage yards every year, including his rookie year, except for last year. And he's extremely versatile. He runs the ball he ran the ball for the Panthers. I could see him doing it here for the Bears on those jet sweeps, things like that. In 2020, they used him more as a deep threat. He excelled. He hit his 1,000-yard mark that year. Past few years, he's been a possession receiver. He can do that. He can do anything you ask of a receiver. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that he's never had a good quarterback his entire life. I remember he had like 12 quarterbacks for Maryland in the 3 years he played there. And then just looking at the list, so 2018, Cam played most of the year, but by then Cam sucked. Heineke and Allen played a little bit. Then Kyle Allen played most of the year in 2019. Cam, Will Greer played a little bit. 2020, Teddy Bridgewater most of the year, who's fine, but and PJ Walker. 2021, Darnold most of the year. Cam again, who at that point I was better than him.
I'm back.
and PJ Walker. And then last year, the worst year of his career, sadly, he had a pretty even split between Mayfield, Walker, and Darnold. The big change this makes for the Bears is obviously for DJ, he's getting the best quarterback talent for sure that he's had. Cam was great, but by the time DJ got to the Panthers, he wasn't really, as good as he once was. What's so important about this deal for the Bears is I think, like I've stated already, DJ Moore is a legitimate number one receiver, and this gives the Bears the opportunity to say, hey, go ahead, Justin, either prove you're the guy or you're not. If he can't produce, it pushes everyone down. He's a true number one. You have Chase Claypool, who's a solid auxiliary piece, and Darnell Mooney, who's a solid auxiliary piece. Kmet is at tight end. They have, we love Roshan. He's going to have a chance to prove himself, and I personally think that Justin Fields is going to, since he's going to have a true number one, I think they're going to become a great tandem on a pretty good offense this year.
I agree. I love Fields this year. I have some Fields MVP bets. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but I think it's definitely worth the odds. And a big factor in that would be DJ Moore. And the final player that we're going to talk about, who you probably wouldn't think in 2023 is still being discussed, the former 5th pick overall in the draft, multiple-time Pro Bowler, former Super Bowl champion, Jalen Ramsey. Now, for Ramsey, it's a lot less of how he is right now versus what he brings to this Dolphins team. This Dolphins team is stacked, and I know that you are very high on them as well, which maybe you could say at the end, but no corner has ever had a lower missed tackle rate. His missed tackle rate is 8%, which is phenomenal. And that's going to help a lot in this division where there's a lot of speedy receivers and great quarterbacks. And Ramsey's the type of guy where he's really plug and play. You can play him anywhere and he fits in almost every defensive scheme. He's going to be alongside Xavier Howard, Javon Holland, and Brandon Jones, which has to excite Vic Fangio. I mean, Ramsey specifically wanted to be on Miami. He was tweeting about it. He was begging the Rams to actually send him over there. I think the biggest factor of why he's going to bolster this already solid Miami defense is that he can prolong plays by allowing the Miami pass rush to actually get to the quarterback. The pass rush also added Bradley Chubb from the Broncos last year. I think that was a really low-key sign and trade. I think that Chubb is a phenomenal player. They had 388 quarterback pressures last year, but only had 40 sacks. So there's so much room for improvement there. I mean, the Miami defense could be incredible this year. They just have so much explosiveness on both ends of the ball. And I think that Jalen Ramsey alongside Xavier Howard, who's in his prime right now, I think that that's the best cornerback tandem that we've seen in quite some time. So I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, I love this move by the Miami Dolphins. You spoke to it earlier. This is so big for them. If you listen to the podcast, you'll hear our hot takes. One that I considered was the Dolphins winning the division, but I talked to you, and you were like, I don't really think that's a hot take. We both agree on the Dolphins being great this year, and one of the reasons is you spoke to it. Ramsey and Howard is one of, if not the best cornerback duos in the league. I love Javon Holland. He's been great since he's been in the league. Bradley Chubb, he gets a full offseason to get in with the scheme, to work with Jalen Phillips, who's good, Christian Wilkins, who's big. That defense, I think, is really going to come together with adding Jalen Ramsey against tough opponents, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and obviously their offense is great if Tua is in. I think that this is obviously one of the biggest moves of the offseason. I'm very, very excited to see what the Dolphins can do this year.
I mean, the mental games too that he's going to play in the heads of like a guy like Rodgers, who's a little bit of a diva at times. So I'm sure that they're going to be getting into it. And we will make an entire video, honestly, about why we think that the Dolphins will win the division. We might make that next week, actually, if you want to hear that in the comments below. So I could ramble all day talking about the Dolphins and how great of a team that they are. And I think if it wasn't for Tua, everyone would be talking about them. But because of all the hate toward Tua, they're just not doing it. But give us some video ideas. Write them in the comment section below. Up next, we actually have a fantasy football mock draft. So make sure to turn on those notifications. And we already mentioned it 3 times, but go check out the podcast. What are you doing? If you didn't do it, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, and it is on this channel. So go check that out. I hope you all liked your biggest movers. Comment below who your favorite mover was this year. Was it any of ours? Was it a different one? Did we completely whiff on who it was? I don't know. Let us know. Comment below. I'll see you all in the next video.